Good morning, Queens. Good to be back with you. Another, what is this, Tuesday? Good to see you. We're going to pick up right where we left off on yesterday when I was saying to you all, sis, God has not forgotten about you. And I want to remind you of that at the top of our lesson on today. Sis, God has not forgotten about you. Those of you who are already in the room, y'all receive that in your spirit. You can say that out loud in your own homes. God has not forgotten about me. I want to invite you to picture that thing that you've been praying for, that you've been believing for, that you've been asking God for, and just say it to yourself one more time. Sis, God has not forgotten. I said, say it to yourself. So you don't have to call yourself sis, but you can, right? Sis, God has not forgotten about you. Go ahead, as we always do, and just love on another sister on this morning. You may desire to tag another queen friend that you don't see in the room already, and invite them to come on in as we get ready to jump into some really good stuff with Rizpah. This is going to be one of those lessons for the mature women on today. I am hoping that so many of you are already in this space. From Navasota, Sarah, I'm trusting that you're running on into the room, all the way up in Dallas, Mary Carey and Serenity Johnson, and all the way up in Ohio, Brashonda. I hope you're getting in the room. And if y'all don't see them, you're tagging them and tell them, hey, get on in here. Nija and Cece, Lorena, Erica, just welcoming queens into the space on today, taking a moment to call those in Brian by name, Arlinda and Aletha, and Deshonda may be joining us today. Tommy may be joining us today. Y'all tag queen friends. Alice is already here, was about to say your name, but tagging those who desire to join. Courtney up in the Austin area, Tamar in the Round Top area, like women gathering from across the stage just to study the Word of God together. Welcome to the community where we truly are better together. I invite you to acknowledge that you are here by simply liking the video, whether you want to hit the like button or you want to hit the love button. It allows us to glance real quickly and to see your names and call you by name and continue to petition the Lord on your behalf. Somebody see if Justin Darkest Dillard is joining us on this morning. But go ahead and like the video. Let us know that you're here. Tag a queen friend, invite them to come on into the room. And again, to everybody who's in this space, I remind you, God has not forgotten about you. We've been studying Rizpah, and Rizpah has quite a grief-stricken story, but there is victory on the other side. And as I said at the top of this study, then with Rizpah, it is good news for those who are among us, who for you, it has been a long time coming, but know that it will come. It's taken a minute, but it will show up. It's tarried a time, but that arrival, it's on the way. That's good news for any woman on the line in the community today who's been believing God for absolutely anything. Yes, again, it may have taken a long time coming for Rizpah, but it came. It took a minute to show up, but it did show up. It tarried for a time, but it finally did arrive, the thing that she had believed God for. And so we stand in that same faith on today. We step into that same faith momentum in just full alignment that He's the same God of yesteryear, that He's that God of today. What He made happen for one, He can make happen for me too. Somebody say that with me too. And y'all, I'm pressing into it. I am leaning into it? Is there anybody else who, based off of what you can see in the physical realm, you don't quite know how it's going to happen, but you refuse to give up on it? Is there anybody else on this morning? If so, lean on that love button or that like button saying, me too, where I'm just refusing to let go of the petitions that I have before the Lord. Whether you've been praying for your health or praying for your business, your dreams, your goals, your peace of mind, your health challenges, whether it's been for your spouse or been for your marital relationship, your dear children, just some concern that you have before the Lord, a court case, whatever it is there anybody else who's saying, I just refuse to let go? Like, if I let go, what else? What else am I going to do? I was talking to a queen friend even on last evening, and I said, God is still my only hope. Like, so if we were to let go, what else are we going to do? So we're going to continue to believe God. We're going to continue to trust God. We're going to continue to hang in here by faith. And we see that so beautifully with our faith sibling, Rizpah. Rizpah was holding on to God's promises with everything that she had, with some sense that God was going to come through for her. As we move throughout Rizpah's story, we spoke courage over ourselves. Somebody received courage. Somebody say, I received courage. We spoke strength over ourselves. Somebody say, I received strength. We spoke a warrior spirit over ourselves, that ability to hang in there and keep fighting and keep pushing. And we spoke a quiet resistance where we don't need to make a lot of noise. We just want to have that quiet resolve, that quiet resistance that says, come what may, I will not be moved. I'm going to ask you to talk back to me on this morning, because we need to pull on that faith atmosphere. We want to pull on the faith atmosphere because, as I've said before, we're in the push through part. We're in the hard part. We're in the ninth month, y'all. So encourage yourself, speak to yourself, talk to your own spirit. Somebody say out loud in your own house, I speak courage over myself. Come on, say it verbally so you hear you talking to your own spirit. I speak strength over myself. I speak a warrior spirit over myself. I speak a quiet resistance over myself. I'm not going around doing a whole lot of talking about what I'm going to do and what God is going to do. I speak a quiet resistance where I settle into the solitude and I allow God to give strategic insight to me so that I can do and be who He's ordained for me to be. Let's go. So Rizpah, as we understand it, had a domino effect happening in her life. And we acknowledge that space where she was experiencing tragedy and loss due to someone else's choices. Now, y'all know we grown woman it up over here, right? So we acknowledge the space where there are things that happen in our life, and it's because of our own stuff. It's because of our own poor choices. It's because of the decisions that we've made. We own that. But there is a measure of understanding that in Rizpah's life, she was suffering the domino effect. There were some things that were happening in her life that caused her very soul to ache. It caused her to cry. It caused her to have to lean heavily into grief. It caused her to have some mental anguish and some distress. And so some of you, we invited you, and I continue to invite you to receive that peace, that freedom to really understand that everything that happens in your life is not necessarily at the result of your choices. And that gives you a bit of freedom to walk away from condemnation and shame, to walk away from situations and circumstances where you feel obligatory towards it because somehow the enemy has convinced you that you are in that space because of your choice. There is a such thing as a domino effect, and Rizpah was experiencing it. Saul had made some poor choices, and now Saul has gone on into his grave, but the repercussions of his choices showed up in her life, and it cost her the lives of her two sons. It cost her to see their demise, to watch them hanging on a tree, to see them decaying, and she's sitting here in the results of someone else's choices, right? She had that domino effect happening. We're going to talk a bit about that then, as a toggle to our lesson on yesterday, where firstly we said that it's okay not to be okay, and we acknowledge that we say that often, but in this world we really have to accept that, particularly as strong women, as the survivors. How many of you would say that that's pretty much your role in your family? You're the strong person, you're the go-to person, you're the problem solver, you're the resolver, you're the person that people call on, you're the prayer partner, you're the encourager. How many of you would say that's your role, that's what you do? Like, and so you really have to create a space, y'all. You really have to be intentional about creating a space where sometimes it's okay for you not to be okay, where you can catch your breath, where you can breathe, where you can be the one that is poured into, just out of simple natural logistics, just out of processing it with a measure of just, I want to say, common sense that may not be so common. We have to get that strong women that no vessel can pour all the time. That would be absolutely insane to live in a space where you pour all the time. At some point, then you are going to naturally feel depleted, empty, like you've run out. It's important to give yourself grace. I mean it, y'all. I mean it. It's important to really hold space in your own life to say, this is my time out. My emotional bandwidth cannot take another issue that I have to process. My mental fortitude cannot take one more thing that I got to stress and push through. My physical body needs to lay down and take a nap. It is absolutely critical that you afford yourself grace to be poured into. And that can look like whatever it looks like for you. It is okay not to be okay, to take a time out for the purpose of becoming okay. For you, that may look like pulling away with some solid girlfriends and just going to, like what some of us did over the past weekend, Woman Evolve. For somebody else, it may be slipping off to a side street and just having a dinner by yourself alone. Somebody else may desire, one of my running partners loves to just take a good hot bath with some candles and an audible in her ears, listening to something. Someone else may need to just cut on the music and dance around the house with the kids and just laugh and have a good belly roll type of laugh and have a good time. Sometimes for me, it's simply getting on the line early in the morning and chatting with my oldest girlfriend about absolutely nothing and everything. It is okay to create what makes you well, not to wait for it to happen, not to live towards a big vacation like it's going to come around to that eventually, but to create those moments throughout the day, throughout the week that allow you to be well. Will you help me on this morning? In the same way that we told another sis it's okay to not be okay, I want you to remind her on today that it's okay to be well. It's okay to be well. It's okay to create space where you can be well. And it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to create that space. All right. It's okay to be well. If you're joining me by telling another sister, it's okay to be well. It's okay to be well. So now we're going to go ahead and get ready to toggle into point number 2 on today, where we're going to talk in depth a bit about relationships. Good morning to each of you. I see more of you have joined us in my intro slash teaching time. Again, if you're noticing good girlfriends that are not here, that are normally here, they're getting warmed back up to our fall season. I know we took a moment off during the summer, but we're going to continue to call our crew on back so that we can all gather in the mornings for our Bible studies. Number 2, where we're going to learn this lesson from Rizpah: treating others well, right? Treating others well. And y'all, we've had that for a while. Treating others well is necessary for our survival. Being treated well by others is necessary for our survival too. Like, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about the whole story. Treating others well is necessary. That's the part of the culture that we've been told forever and a day, right? Treating others well. It's necessary, very much so. You're going to need other people in your life. The Bible says he who has friends must first show himself friendly, right? So we get this essence that we're supposed to treat others well. And many of us exist in this world, exist in life trying to do that, trying to make sure that we're kind to others, that we greet others, that we acknowledge their special days, that we show up when they need us. Many of us exist trying to treat each other well. But here is the flip side of that as well. And perhaps this is a space where many of us need to still continue to do the work. Being treated well by others is necessary too. Being treated well by others is necessary too. Let's jump back up at Rizpah real quick to see where we get that takeaway from. And then I'm going to give us some practicals about that. Should anybody have to transition near the very end, I want to give you these 3 words so that we can put them into the notes. There is appreciation, reciprocation, and then initiation. That is a practical tool to begin to examine, to begin to examine your relationships. Several years back, I was doing a teaching about squad goals, and it was based off of the story of the four people who packed the mat. Many of you may remember that. Any of you remember squad goals? And there was this idea that people have told us forever to make good friends, but what do good friends look like? So it was a practical teaching. Well, this is a variation, a deeper understanding of, or a quick way to assess. So the first level is, are y'all already getting it down? Appreciation, reciprocation, and then initiation. And we'll come back and talk about it. But let's run back to Rizpah real quick, where I say treating others well is necessary. Being treated well by others is necessary for our survival too. So we understand this with Rizpah. Let me just say this right off the top. We don't have to go all the way back to a faith sibling story to identify selfish people. I believe I could ask many of you, and you would quickly say, yeah, I get that. We don't have to look far into the Bible to find selfish people, folks who are all about themselves. Selfishness. They will step on you and walk all over you and use you and then ignore you to get to where they're trying to go. Can anybody just go ahead and say, okay, she's not making it up? Selfish people really do exist. We don't have to go all the way back into Second Samuel to get some examples of selfishness, that I understand selfishness and that selfishness is very real. So these are the things that we have to talk about, particularly in a Christian culture where a whole thrust of our theology is that we are to be kind to others, that we are to be tender towards others, that we're so supposed to be patient and long suffering, and putting that into context, right? Because I'm going to flat-footed tell you, particularly as a daughter of the Lord, of your good daddy God, in the same breath that he pushes us toward kindness and being long suffering and tenderhearted, that is the same God who will say, but vengeance is mine. The same God who will say, touch not my anointed. The same God who puts boundaries and says that the God of the angel armies will rise up on our behalf. There's a measure and a balance, and we can take any teaching too far and find ourselves cultivating and nurturing a way of being, particularly upon women, that allow us to just be walked over, all in the name of Christianity, all in the name of trying to be Christ-like. Y'all follow me here. So here's what happened in this particular scenario. We can see it very clearly. We have Rizpah paying the price for Saul's choices, right? So David comes, he gets Rizpah's two sons, right, to pay back the Gibeonites for something that Saul has done. Now, Saul is already in the grave. David takes her sons, gives them to the Gibeonites, and then he goes home. And Rizpah is left with the residue of other people's choices in her life while they have gone on about their business. They have gone on to attend to whatever is their priority. Now, it does not have to be as extreme as the taking of our two sons for many women to step into those same shoes and say, yes, I understand what it's like for somebody to make poor choices, make poor decisions, and bring their stuff over into my life. And I'm here reaping the havoc of what they've determined they're going to do. I'm trying to sort through it. I'm trying to find a solution. I'm trying to pray about it. I'm trying to negotiate. And they done got up and went right on about their business. Can I hear anybody from the front row or the back row who says, I understand that. I understand what it's like for somebody else to make a choice in their life, to overspend on their budget, to wreck their car, to mess up their marriage, to make some decision that has them in an unfortunate condition. And they bring all of that drama over into my life. And I'm over here worrying about it harder than they're worrying about it. I'm over here crying harder than they're crying. I'm over here rearranging my budget, trying to make up for something they spent over in theirs, and they have gone on about their life. Anybody understand what Rizpah was probably processing? Y'all done did all of this stuff. Y'all done messed up with these people. Y'all done caused all of this confusion and chaos. And then you come over in my life. You take the thing that I love and you sacrifice it. And then you just get up and go back home. You just get up and go do whatever you want to do. That's Rizpah. That's Rizpah. That's her moment. Now I'm over here grieving and crying and experiencing this loss. And David, you don't went on back home. And not only that, you don't went on back home to your family and to your children. You don't went on back home to your peace. You don't went on back home to your castle and to your resources. And I'm over here, Rizpah. I'm over here mourning the loss. I'm over here living through the lack because of your choice. I see y'all coming on in here with me to my good Lord. Yes. Yes, you understand what it's like. And again, it may not be the extreme of your children being lost, but some of you are saying, because see, I was sitting in peace, minding my own business till you called my phone. I was sitting over here good with my savings until you called me with your emergency. I was sitting over here solid with my relationships until you went and stirred up some trouble and got some stuff going. I was doing real good minding my own business until you knocked at the door with your concerns. And then I jumped in trying to help with your concerns. And now you don't went on up the street like you acting brand new, like you didn't bring those concerns to my attention. Y'all are tracking with Rizpah, right? That's what Rizpah was. Like, my God, today, yes. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been brought into a fight, brought into some confusion, brought into some drama, and you're in it trying to speak up for the folk who brought it to your attention, and then they play brand new like they ain't never brought that to you. They ain't never said any of that, like you just being the one fanning the flame. Yes, Rizpah was suffering the impact of someone else's choices. And so here's what happens. I see y'all saying, been there, Lord, I understand. Y'all are in it with Rizpah on this morning. And so this is then what Rizpah does. Rizpah then refuses to move on, right? Rizpah refuses to move on. David has gone back home. They done put her sons up in this tree, and Saul is dead, and the Gibeonites are rejoicing because they finally got to do to Saul's family what they desire to do. But Rizpah refuses to move on. Rizpah's vigil, Rizpah's perseverance, Rizpah's commitment to stay out there on that rock, mourning, dressed in her black cloth, fanning with her leaves and her branches to keep the animals off of her sons. Rizpah's refusal to move on made David come back and pay attention. See, some of us have got to determine that even with the world watching and not necessarily knowing the details, even with the onlookers saying you ought to be okay and just move on, you ought to let that go. Some of us are going to have that same resolve as our faith sibling Rizpah. The resolution is due me, and you're going to pay me what belongs to me. You're going to give me what is due me. I am going to get closure or resolution to this particular situation. So Rizpah hung out all there. She did not care how many people came by and said, Rizpah, man, your children. She did not care. Rizpah said, I will not be moved. For some of you who are tracking through a journey, a situation, a healing moment, a resolution within a relationship, I want you to receive that resolve for yourself on today and just say out loud with me, I will not be moved. I am facing various situations in my life, but I am going to push through with fortitude by faith until I get what belongs to me. I will not be moved. I see you saying that with me on this morning. I will not be moved. It doesn't matter what it looked like. It doesn't matter what your opinion of it is. I will not be moved. There are some things. See, this is what's clear about for Rizpah. Rizpah understood that I have handled you all correctly. I have done what is right. I had to survive. When David came to take her sons, to just survive, and I'm sure at some point she would have preferred death even, but just to survive, Rizpah went along according to the rules and laws of that day. Rizpah understood that if a debt is due, I have to pay it. And as hard as it is, I got to go along with the laws and the rules and the regulations of this time. And so they took her sons as in the law of that day you could. But Rizpah also understood that when you do that, my sons are sons of a king. They are due a certain type of death procedure. They are due a certain type of burial process. So I have treated you well according to the law. Now you are not going to mishandle me. You are not going to be treated according to the law and given what is due you and then ignore me and walk away. I've treated you well for my survival, and it is your responsibility to treat me well for my survival. Somebody better receive that today, that there are things that you may do that are right in treating others well, but it is acceptable. It is your responsibility to have a boundary about how you are going to be treated as well. Are y'all tracking? Somebody let me know if you're tracking. So yes, Rizpah understood, I got to go through this process to follow the rules and to be in alignment with what will treat you well. But you're going to have to turn around and treat me well. I'm not going to submit to a process that is one way. I'm not going to agree to a process that only benefits you. It is okay for me to say, yes, I am willing to give this part because that is what you are requiring. But I got some requirements myself. Somebody say that with me. I got some requirements myself. I got some boundaries myself. I got some stuff that is due me myself. And so we're going to talk in more detail about that. So this is what happens. Rizpah stays on that rock, and it forces David to have to pay attention. God literally vindicates Rizpah, and the word gets back to David that Rizpah is still waiting out on that rock with those bodies decaying, with her branches protecting the son's bodies from the birds and from the wolves or whatever at night. And David, at one point, people were judging Rizpah and feeling like Rizpah is just crazy and Rizpah ought to be getting over it. But David, at this point, people are beginning to judge you. God is a vindicating God. For anybody who's going through something and the eyes seem to be upon you and you're getting the short end of the stick, y'all, hold on. Sis, God has not forgotten about you. So David got the report. But at this point, David, people are no longer beginning to judge Rizpah. People are no longer calling Rizpah crazy. People are no longer wondering why is Rizpah still holding on to her sons, David. At this point, people are beginning to judge you, David. People are beginning to observe that you as king understand the rules of the kingdom, that you as king know that you are mishandling her, that you as king who have your own sons understand that the sons of a king are due a certain burial process. David, people are beginning to look at you as the king, as somebody who's mistreating the less fortunate, as somebody who's bullying one of God's daughters. David, that thing is now shifting, and what used to be on the eyes of Rizpah are now being directed towards you. And this nation is beginning to rise up and wonder, David, why are you mishandling a widow? Why are you taking advantage of a person who's less fortunate than you? You see how God will vindicate. For just a moment, all of the talk was on Rizpah. All of the conversation was circulating about Rizpah, but God is the one who vindicates, and his spirit began to sweep through the minds of the nation, and the nation began to twist their thinking to really understand that this is not about where Rizpah fell short. This is about David, that David has mishandled Rizpah, that David has not delivered on the things that are due to Rizpah. God is a God of vindication, y'all. God is a God of vindication, y'all. God is a God who sees all things and knows all things. And Rizpah just had to hold on until the God of vindication came through, until the God of vindication showed up, until the God of vindication shut their mouths, until the God of vindication spoke up on her behalf. Some queen received that encouragement on today because you've been in a journey, you've been in a process where the talk has been all about you and where you have fallen short and where you didn't come through, and you could be looking kind of crazy and folk could be wondering like how you come into the decisions that you're coming to because you refuse to be moved, because you refuse to transition. Hang in there, sis. We're going to start where we began. God has not forgotten about you. God has not forgotten about you. And King David does show up, y'all. King David does show up, and he buries her sons after about 8 to 9 months of her hanging in the process. Some of you have already hung in your process way longer than 8 to 9 months. If he's the God of yesteryear who showed up for Rizpah, he is the God of today who will show up for you. Hear me, sis. God has not forgotten about you. God has not forgotten whatever it is that you are believing for, particularly in the arena where it is rightfully due to you. It does not matter how insignificant it may look to the external watchers. Does not matter how somebody else may determine that you ought to be over it, that you should just move on. Take encouragement, take hope from our faith sibling Rizpah. God vindicates and he shows up. Here was our point on today as we set up ourselves for tomorrow. I said it is right for you to treat others well for their survival and for your survival, but it is right that you be treated well as well. Rizpah drew the line and understood how she was supposed to be treated. Many of you exist in this life knowing how to treat other people well. You practice treating other people well. But we have not often taken the time to really process and think through. But what does it look like? What are my requirements? What are the standards and the boundaries by which I understand that I am being treated well? Sis, listen with your good Christian self. I understand Christianity. I understand the culture and what we've been taught in Christianity. I understand that the emphasis has often been on what we do towards others. I want you to hear me. There is a balance that has to come, even the more in the body of Christ. Not only does God have expectations for how we are to treat others, the other flip side of that coin is God has expectations on how you are to be treated. Hmm. Y'all better receive that. In a world where many women exist not covered, whether it's from a lack of father figures who taught you how to be treated, whether it's from dysfunctional relationships that have caused you to second guess your self worth or your value, you've had to fight hard and be hard just to survive in this world. I want to make this announcement and then we're going to talk about it. Yes, God has requirements for how you are supposed to be treated. God has expectations about how you are supposed to be received. Yes, absolutely. There are so many lessons about how we are supposed to treat others, how our actions and words are supposed to go out. But God also has expectations on how you're supposed to be treated. And it is okay to have a standard that is way up here about how you're going to treat others. It is also okay to have a standard that is way up here about how you're going to be treated. God cares about both. Tomorrow, we're going to deep dive in because I'm going to honor the time a little bit because we're already there. There is a space that will help us to process. Y'all, say it again, what you wrote earlier: appreciation, reciprocation, initiation. Those are levels in relationships. And yes, I do be practicing my counseling skill sets on y'all, but I'm going to teach it. Y'all just be getting some therapy for free, right? There is a space of appreciation, reciprocation, and initiation. It will help you as a tool to walk through and process your relationships. Some of you are going to find that you thought you were in solid relationships until you understand the tool. Others are also going to find that there are people who are solid for your life that you have not necessarily regarded as good because you didn't really know how to see goodness. There is appreciation, there is reciprocation, and there is initiation. I promise you, it is a powerful relational tool that we will explore tomorrow when we meet right back here. So if you really want to know how to step into the space like Rizpah and understand, I done treated you a certain way. I did right by you. And I be doggone. You gonna do right by me and understand really how to look at relationships and process it and help get to that place, then I'm gonna see you right back here in the morning. This like one of them big, this one like one of them to be continued, or one of those good soap opera stories, when the people stare off into space and then the show go off and then you got to come back the next day to see what happened. That's what we're doing right here. All right. So I'm going to see you right back here in the morning, and we are going to process that tool. And I promise you, you will leave empowered. You will really know how to examine, process relationships, and then hold your ground like a Rizpah. I treat you well, sis. I treat you well, sir. I'm going to have expectations that that same thing comes back to me, right? I'll see you right back here at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're going to go through a Wellness Wednesday tool. Also, I'll remind you, y'all see these themes on Thursday. It's going to be Talk to Me Thursday, and I'm going to be answering some of the questions that have come up in our Bible study all week long so that we can just really process and apply it to our lives, okay? I'll see you in the morning. As always, I honor the greatness that's on the inside of you.